Hi, horse friends. In today's video, Beck and I, are going to talk about Anthony Thomas, a horse trainer or show jumping trainer in Australia, and his abuse case. And you just won't believe what he did, and then he defended it. So I'm going to let Beck get started by kind of talking about the scenario and what he said.
Yeah. I will tell you, I just want to say, a lot of these things come out and everything, and the actions are always unbelievable and everything, but as more come out, I am less surprised that people are trying to defend themselves on this.
It's terrible.
I should be surprised by it, but I'm not, and I hate you for it.
Yeah, right?
Okay. So, the groom recorded him, Thomas, beating his horse with his helmet on the head. And yelling at him, calling him a blanking billy goat, blank. A blanking, can you feel it? Can you blank? And then he goes on to call the horse stupid and call it dumb and don't be dumb. Are you going to respect me tonight and night?
While he's hitting him in the head.
While he's striking him with his helmet, striking his horse. And one of the things too is striking me as unintended, are you gonna respect me tonight? And it's what in their right mind would respect anyone that just beat it in the head with a helmet?
Yeah.
Anything for that matter.
Be afraid, but not respect.
And then in his trial, I think it's called a trial there. Anyways, in his defense, he said that it was a legitimate training method and necessary harm. Which tells you right there, he knows he was harming that horse.
Yeah.
Absolutely knows. There's... What?
Horses don't speak English, so they don't understand the words. Yeah.
They speak body language and horse.
Mm-hmm.
I want to rage right now, and I gotta keep it clean for the video.
Yeah.
Which fortunately the magistrate in that called him out on that BS. He was like, that's untruthful and vague, which I guess is kind of vague and everything, but okay, he was caught and he was videoed on it, but then he defends it saying it's in his mind, in Thomas's mind, it's a legitimate training method. So what other legitimate or illegitimate training methods is he doing that he's not being witnessed of, or at least being recorded and shown?
To me, for a groom to whip out their phone and start filming, this has happened before, and they're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm going to be ready the next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was banned by multiple associations, and he also went bankrupt last year, so probably was going through a lot of things mentally, but it's not an excuse.
Right.
But the fact that he justifies it and doesn't say he's sorry and, oh my gosh, this was terrible.
It in the trial, and then talking to the news people, he was like, oh no, it was just a one-off thing. I'm
liar. Liar.
I'm not for sure, but yes, it doesn't matter if it's a one-off thing. Why is that what you go to?
Yeah.
Why is that the immediate? That is an extreme escalation,
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it is a one-off thing, and that's the biggest thing for me when people are caught doing something like this in some form of abuse case where they're like, oh, it's just a one-off thing. Like the last one we did about the vet or whatever, people talking about, and it's like, oh, it's just a one-off thing. That's extreme. That's an extreme escalation.
Mm-hmm.
How can it be a one-off, and how does it get like that? Because I don't believe that it's a one-off thing. It might be a one-off that you saw or was witnessed in the sense of, okay, maybe the escalation was, okay, they start using the whip too much or too hard, right? And they're just going, they're like, this isn't working, so I'm going to try something else. Or they overspur their horse or something else. And it's these little things that don't necessarily think about or see, but it's building up to that.
A bigger problem.
Yeah.
And to hit them in the head with your helmet.
Yeah.
And helmets are hard.
To protect your skull.
I mean, you could give the horse a concussion.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's not ever okay. And I just don't know where people think that they're going to get through to a horse. I mean, that's not,
anything.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, I mean, you hit somebody in the head. and you're not going to be friends. You aren't going to have respect, and you're a terrible person. And there's just no way around that. It's not a viable training method for anything. Just not. I mean, maybe if a horse was running me over and jumping on me, then I might get off of me.
Yeah, I mean, there's been times when like a horse has bit me and I've just kind of swung around like, don't you bite me. And then there's been times that they've tried to bite me and I grab them and I'm like, I'll bite you back.
But you weren't running after them with your helmet.
Yeah, and I'm not like continuously going, and I'm not cursing at them and calling them names or anything. Like every once in a while we'll joke around and be like, we'll go up to one of our favorite horses and be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But and horses can feel that energy too. And
they can feel that we're joking,
Like they know, like
we joke a lot at our barn. It's fun.
But they can feel the energy that's coming out. They don't know what we're saying, right? They don't know that we're calling them any names, but we're just like,
But I am proud of the groom for standing up and turning this in. I am proud of the judicial system in Australia and the judge for saying this is no nonsense. There are no excuses here. You're not allowed to do this. I do think that could be a positive shift that we're seeing in our world with horses. I'm hoping is that people are being held accountable. It is getting published. It is getting talked about. And it doesn't matter who you are. You will get embarrassed and you will get kicked out. Yeah. And it's kind of unfortunate.
And people will remember your name.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but people like this only respond to huge consequences, right? Think about what they're doing to the animal. They are not going to get responded to, okay, you should probably never do that again, right? That's not something that people that are this brutal care about. And so they need judges, they need associations, they need harsh rules, and they need consequences. A talking to isn't going to help people like that. They need consequences. And I would love to say that people like this just shouldn't be allowed in our industry at all, but that's just not real life. So what we need is a system that when people get into horses, that they have a little bit of that fear themselves. This is all going to get taken away from me if I do this. And it needs to be public.
It needs to be, and then also it needs to be set up in a way too that like people who have that in them that are going into it not for the love of the animal or the love of the sport or whatever else, just don't go into it.
Yeah.
Right? Because if that's your thought process, like, oh, I'm not going to harm something because I'll lose money, reputation, or whatever else, it's not the right reason to be in it. You want to not harm something because it's wrong to harm. But again,
we can't stop
things. Yeah, and people go into things. And one of the things I do want to say is that I wish the punishment was a little harsher. It's either 2 years in prison or a $20,000 fine. It's something, right? I will say that, like, here in the U.S. and in our state of Nevada, they're pretty lax. I worked for a little bit. I volunteered at a rescue, and there was some stuff in some cases where, like, the horse was starved to death, and then one horse was removed from the property almost just, it was skeletal. He was probably, like, just a few months away from death. It was a very serious case and everything, and the person was just banned from owning livestock for a year. They didn't have any fines, they didn't see any jail time. Another horse we got in that was super skinny, very malnourished and all, was reported by the people's neighbor, actually. They thwarted any criminal charges. They didn't have any trouble or anything because they cooperated with animal control and signed it over to the rescue. And there was no accountability held.
That's so sad.
So, and it's just, in the U.S., there's no, like, and I don't know if this would be the same in Australia or not, I can't say, but I know in the U.S. there's no, like, overall encompassing accountability or anything. Every state is different.
Yeah.
You know, there's no federal or unifying rule.
I know that in the U.S. they've talked about bringing the USDA into all of these shows, but the problem is that there is a real disagreement among disciplines. So, like, the USDA is supposed to monitor the big licks, and we know how well that goes. And the USDA is also not well funded enough. Because there has been talk about, like I said, bringing them into the dressage shows, into the Western world, all of those types of things. And don't even get me started on the Western world and the drugs and all that. That's for another day.
It's a whole other
yeah, it's a whole other topic. I'm not saying us dressage people are perfect, because Lord knows you've seen our videos on that.
Exactly.
But
there's a lot. And it's all intertwined too, because it all goes back to a lot of the money and, and the politics involved, and just
there's a lot of well-meaning people that enact laws and enact. You talk about like horse slaughter in the U.S. too, and the cases with that, and us shipping it to different countries. The problem is we get a lot of people that try to enact a rule and they don't see the whole picture.
Right.
And we don't necessarily have funding as well, or enough funding for the animals. I think that that's a big problem too, like these rescues and confiscation cases. I know a lot of issues with starving horses is the police go in, they find these neglect cases, and they don't have anywhere to put the animals. If the rescues are full, where do they send these animals to?
Or one of the things too is like the laws are really weirdly made. I know I followed this rescue that was really bad. I was following the story of the rescue, I should say, not the rescue itself, but like following the story of it and everything. It was really bad. It was in California, and there was a whole lot of stuff going on with it. But one of the things is that I guess in California at the time, I don't know if it still is like that. I don't know if it was county-based or anything, but what I do know is that people were reporting on it because people would go and toss feed to the animals at this rescue that were being starved. And they were saying that as much as we want to help these horses, we cannot do that and get them pulled, because if the animal welfare people go, if the sheriffs go and they see there is active amounts of food there, they cannot do anything.
Yeah.
Because they are being fed, and you cannot prove that the horses got in this condition because they weren't being fed, or things along those lines. And so it's like, which I can understand to a point of that being the case, because if somebody brings in a horse that's like that and is trying to fatten them up, you don't want to just be like, oh, we're going to take that away because it's skinny.
Well, and
it's a whole lot that goes.
It's kind of like getting back to this case, right? I know the guy's farm closed, so fortunately they didn't have to necessarily worry about the animals at the farm. But the problem is, once again, associations and money and being able to monitor what is happening. All of that costs money. Having people go around at a horse show and police everybody, which is so stupid that they have to do that, but they have to police everybody for welfare, costs money. And we know that everybody's getting tired of how expensive it is to show and how expensive our association fees are. But if we want this to improve, and we want there to be more, overlord, I guess watching over the animal welfare, that costs money. That's not free.
Yeah. And it has to be done in a way that there are, it's not just hiring some people to look at certain things or whatever else. You have to have checks and balances too, because again, it goes back to the people with the power and the money corrupting others with whatever else, to look the other way, to slide things under the rugs, and you go around and around in these cycles.
Later on this week, we're going to have a video about the new blood roll and all of the consequences with that, and how many checks and balances that are happening with this new blood rule, and it costs money. It costs money, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'll let you guys kind of decide with the video that comes out, but none of this is free. And I'm happy to pay for it if it means I'm caring for horses, but just so you guys know, association fees could go up because none of this is free.
Yeah.
So
it's back and forth.
It is. It is. But it would be, it's worth it to protect horses.
Yeah.
It is, if they do it
Trial
right.
and error, right? Because we might play around with some of these things and realize this is not working and have to try something different, right?
No.
Or something new or tweak things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and let us know your thoughts on this case and all the cases in general. We're going to have a lot more where this comes from. So thank you.